in time with the other side zone above Winston here with 2 baby, and he in the number 7 position has got a basket.
There's a website I like to frequent called TV Tropes, a site dedicated to cataloging and presenting tropes in the stories we like to tell. Whether that's a book, movie, TV show, or video game, every conceivable narrative device has been written down with comprehensive summaries and examples for every single page. Every single page. 2 of the tropes that I find to be the most relatable, due to me living in both situations, are the suburbs and the big city. When these places are discussed, there's a noticeable degree of separation between them, and yet they're inextricably linked with each other. We'll take a look at these 2 narrative settings, examining their common archetypes, their basis in socioeconomics, and the media that reflects and critiques what it means to live there. Keep in mind, this is from an American perspective, and the media portrayals of these places in other countries could be radically different. Okay, cool. When I say the American dream, the first thought you have may look like this. For people who grew up in the suburbs like I did, these houses, roads, and town centers seem extremely familiar. Suburban towns are everywhere in the United States, and they've become the photogenic ideal of American life. Perfect lawns, a school that everyone goes to, family-run stores and restaurants, the comically inept bully who buys crypto after he graduates high school, and a church. Welcome to Utopia. However, a lot of American media, both in the past and the present, explicitly pin suburbia and the people who live there as boring or even oppressive. The towns are full of teachers, mayors, and generally old people who try to stop outsiders and rebellious kids from disrupting the status quo of being incredibly lame and not dancing. Activist urban college students go there to become scared sticklers who want to fit into the gated community. There's a person that fits this description in Frank Wilderson's Afro-pessimism, an activist who was part of the radical weather underground. I needed a job, he says, without arch or irony in his voice. So I joined the human race. The suburbs on screen are extremely domesticated.
Domesticated version of the animal. They just throw food at it all day. That's not a lion. It's never had a struggle in its life, you know? If a zoo lion and me saw a lion from the wild, we would run together. Okay, not the same speed, but the same direction. That zoo lion would be like, he's from the streets! No?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hit it!
On the other hand, there's the big city. It's hip, happening, dangerous, and everything the on-screen suburbs are not. It's a diverse melting pot where everyone lives, from the people in the slums fighting to survive, to the aforementioned activists in college, to the smarmy executives smoking cigars and counting cash. Advertising and neon lights are everywhere. Criminals fight in the street and rob banks. Even the soundtrack has been labeled urban throughout the ages, whether it's jazz in the 20s or hip-hop today. On screen, the city is an alluring, dangerous, and laissez-faire place. The culture of big cities in the depiction of rampant crime has been packaged up and commodified as a one-dimensional portrayal, just like the depictions of the suburbs. It's a deterrent against gated community people from living there and the dream for punks and rebellious kids. There's a stark contrast between the crime-ridden neighborhoods and the lavish parties in the financial district. These 2 sides only overlapping in extraordinary circumstances. Cities in TV and movies sell the risk of living there as a product. So there it is, the suburbs are safe but boring, and the city is cool but dangerous. Congratulations, we've figured it out. Here's the question though. Why? Why are every suburb and city like this in the stories we consume? And how do some films examine that fact? Culture today is infecting everything with sameness. Film, radio, and magazines form a system. Each branch of culture is unanimous within itself, and all are unanimous together. That's a line from the book Dialectic of Enlightenment, written by Max Horkheimer and Theodor Adorno, in the opening paragraph of the chapter called The Culture Industry. Horkheimer and Adorno described the culture industry as mass media controlling the common narrative in society and stopping people from challenging the rule of those in charge through pacification and entertainment. Something is provided for everyone so that no one can escape. Differences are hammered home and propagated. In this case, the difference being hammered home is the aforementioned boxes that the two settings are put in. The suburbs are safe but boring, and the city is cool but dangerous. Everybody's so used to these ideas of suburbs and cities that they become the norm, and anything contradicting those narratives inspire change, which people in power aren't usually fans of, last time I checked. You see this a lot in John Carpenter's They Live, where the aliens control everyone through subliminal messages in advertising and TV, and Lakeith Stanfield's Sorry to Bother You, where corporations commodify violence and exploit the labor of poor people so that they can make horse people. I wish I was kidding. What the culture industry also emphasizes heavily is the portrayals of culture in both locations, and the fact that the tension between cities and suburbs comes down to race and class. Due to a long history of displacement and redlining, lower income areas like cities are more associated with people who don't fit the mold of the middle and upper class white homeowner, meaning lower class people of color. Even then, lower class white people have been historically excluded from upper class circles because their poverty associated them with people of color, like Irish and Italian immigrants. Another example of the culture industry. Cheryl Harris, writing in Whiteness is Property, describes how her grandmother passing as white allowed her to access resources that she would have been able to get if she looked, quote, more black. It was a given to my grandmother that being white automatically ensured higher economic returns in the short term, as well as greater economic, political, and social security in the long run. Becoming white meant gaining access to a whole set of public and private privileges that materially and permanently guaranteed basic subsistence needs and, therefore, survival. God, that quote is a tongue twister. This is a central theme in Jordan Peele's Get Out and Sorry to Bother You, where the people in power maintain a status quo of whiteness at all times. The media portrayals of white suburbia reinforce this notion that being white and having money is an asset. It's a membership card for better communities and more control over your life. It's the American dream. On the other hand, the depiction of city culture being debaucherous, dangerous, and decidedly more black sends mixed messages to the audience. Young adults living in the suburbs love it and want to be a part of it, and their parents and grandparents may have fled those cities, hence white flight, because of the culture being presented. For films taking place in suburbia, the city, or both, the locations drive the narrative of the story just as much as the characters or plot do. The contrast between the two places shape the attitudes of the people on screen as well as the people watching it. These depictions may not reflect reality, especially with the horse people, but they are certainly inspired by reality. Tropes are fun to catalog on websites and discuss how they're present in a piece of media, but do you want your reality to be defined by tropes?